I used to stare at my work for literally hours without doing anything, just procrastinating really hard. And I'm not talking about once or twice, I'm talking all the time. But over the years, I've actually gotten better at disciplining myself. I'm not perfect, obviously, but way better than I was. There's a trick that I started to use that literally changed everything. It sounds so simple, but it really works. I know you know the feeling. You sit down, you open your laptop or whatever, and suddenly your brain just refuses to cooperate. Like it's physically painful to start. You're not lazy. Around 50% of university students deal with chronic procrastination, and about 20% of adults are chronic procrastinators. So if you're struggling with this, you're literally in the majority. So why does starting sometimes feel impossible? Your brain isn't broken. It's actually doing exactly what it evolved to do: avoid discomfort. When you think about starting work, your brain scans for threats. Is this going to be hard? Is this going to be difficult? And then boom, you get the dreaded resistance. That's why starting is genuinely the hardest part. So here's the trick I use now, and it's backed by actual psychology. It's called the 5-minute rule. All you do is commit to working for exactly 5 minutes, and that's it. 5 minutes, and then you stop. When you tell yourself you only have to work for 5 minutes, you're basically hacking your brain's threat detection system. 5 minutes isn't threatening. Your brain won't classify that as a painful or overwhelming event, because it's literally just 5 minutes. You've probably spent longer scrolling TikTok without even thinking about it. And this is where it gets interesting. There's this thing in psychology called the Zeigarnik effect. It's basically the tendency for people to remember unfinished or interrupted tasks better than completed tasks. So basically, once you start something, your brain opens up this mental loop that it really wants to close. So what happens? You tell yourself 5 minutes, you start, and most of the time, not always, but most of the time you keep going way past those 5 minutes. Because once you're in motion, staying in motion takes way less energy than starting did. And this isn't just theory. There is research to show that people who use these micro commitments actually complete their full intended goals 92% of the time. So you're basically tricking yourself into finishing by making the commitment so small, it actually feels like nothing. So when I do this, I literally set a timer for say 5 minutes. Sometimes I genuinely do stop after 5 minutes, and that's fine. Like even those 5 minutes are 5 minutes more than I would have done otherwise. But most days, the timer goes off, and I'd already be so locked in that stopping feels harder than continuing. And obviously I'm not going to sit here and pretend this solves everything. Some of you are probably thinking, yes, but what if I stop after 5 minutes every time? And that's a fair point. But the thing is, even if you do stop, you're building the habit of starting. You're training your brain that starting isn't this overwhelming thing. And data also backs this up. When you break down why people procrastinate, about 50% of people say it's because of task characteristics. So basically the task feels too big or unpleasant. And so the 5-minute rule directly attacks that. But I'm going to be real with you. This only works if you're actually honest about it. You can't do the thing where you're like, I'll just do 5 minutes, while secretly judging yourself for not doing more. That's not really the 5-minute rule. You're just basically procrastinating with some extra steps. The whole point is that 5 minutes is genuinely enough. If you do 5 minutes and stop, you win. If you do 5 minutes and keep going, you also win. And this is the part that made me realize why I'd been struggling for so long. So starting isn't hard because we're lazy. It's hard because our brains run this calculation where they're like, if I start this, I have to finish it. And finishing means potentially hours of discomfort. And that's kind of overwhelming. But 5 minutes? Your brain can't argue with 5 minutes. It's too small to be scary. So now, I don't really stare at my work wasting time like I used to. That was because I was trying to psych myself up to do the whole thing. Like write the whole essay, finish the whole project. And my brain would just shut down because that felt impossible. Now, I don't think about the whole thing. I just think about 5 minutes. And genuinely, most of my work gets done because I tricked myself into starting. So here's how you actually use this. Tomorrow, when you're avoiding something, set a timer for 5 minutes. Not 10, not 15, just keep it at 5. And commit that you'll stop when it goes off if you want to. The key is you have to actually give yourself permission to stop. So this isn't some manipulative 5 minutes that's actually going to be 3 hours thing. It's genuinely 5 minutes and genuinely optional to continue. Some people would say that this is just procrastination in disguise. Like, oh, you're just delaying the real work by only doing 5 minutes. But the research doesn't support that. Once you start, your brain releases dopamine and norepinephrine, the chemicals that fuel focus and drive. That small burst of activity is what helps you move from avoidance to momentum. You're not delaying work, you're making it possible to start work. And also, I'm not saying this is some magic cure-all. Some days you'll do your 5 minutes and stop. Some days you'll still procrastinate even with this trick, and that's normal. Around 88% of people admit to procrastinating at least 1 hour a day, so you're fighting against some pretty strong behavioral patterns here. But what I have found is that having a system, even a simple one like this, makes those hard days way less brutal, because at minimum, you've got 5 minutes of progress instead of 0. And here's what happens over time. You start to build evidence for yourself. Your brain starts to learn that starting isn't some sort of catastrophic thing. It's just starting. And I think that really removes so much of the friction that was blocking you in the first place. So this is how I went from someone who couldn't start anything to someone who's kind of decent at disciplining myself. It wasn't just some massive mindset shift. It was literally just making the barrier to entry so small that my brain couldn't justify avoiding it. So here's the takeaway. Next time you're stuck, don't try to force yourself to do the whole thing. Just commit to 5 minutes, set the timer, start, and then see what happens. Most of the time, you'll end up surprising yourself. And even when you don't, you still showed up, so that counts. Drop a comment and let me know. Do you struggle more with starting or with finishing? Because I feel like for most of us, it's definitely the starting part. And if you've got your own tricks for beating that initial resistance, share them in the comments below. The trick isn't to work harder, it's to make starting so easy that your brain runs out of excuses. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.